Hey, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in the game Arcs, which I played just last night with 4 total players. I happened to win the game with 27 points in a 4-player game. The game took about 2.5 hours with the teach, and we ended after the 3rd round. So I reached 27 points after the 3rd round. So my favorite mechanism of arcs is a little surprising to me because it's actually the combat mechanism. Combat isn't something that usually excites me about games, but I do enjoy a number of games that have combat in them. And I think some really clever things are done with the combat mechanism in this game. So you see all these beautiful, colorful dice, and the choice that you have when you go into combat. Let's see if we have any ships here. Yeah, so here are some of the ships. So if I bring 3 ships into combat, as the attacker, as the person who's instigating the combat, and I choose the battle action in the game based on a card that I play. I get to roll 3 dice of my choice, and I can choose any combination of the dice. So I could choose like a red die and 2 orange dice, or I could choose all 3 blue dice, or I could choose 3 red dice. The decision here is kind of how risky do I want to be in this combat, and notably, and this is really one of the 2 really clever hooks about combat and arcs, is that the opponent doesn't also roll dice. There is no defending with dice. There might be some cards in the game. In fact, I had a railgun card that kind of acted as defense, but there is no active defender. It's not like I'm rolling dice and you're rolling dice. Only the attacker, the person who chooses the battle action, is the one rolling dice. So tied to that hook are how these dice actually work, because the blue dice, there's a chance that you'll deal a hit, that you'll deal a damage here. But there's also a chance that there are blank sides of the blue dice where you aren't dealing any damage. The plus side of the blue dice is that there's no way of hurting yourself. Whereas on the red dice, even though there's a much greater chance of you dealing damage to the opponent, there is also a great chance that you will hurt yourself, that you'll deal damage to yourself. It's almost like you're rolling the dice, but bad things are still happening to you in combat if you roll red dice. The last option, and this I think is my favorite option in the game, I think this is so clever, are these orange dice. On the orange dice, they are essentially raid dice. So instead of trying to damage your opponent and destroy their ships, destroy their bases, their cities, with the orange dice, you're trying to steal their stuff by rolling these keys. When you roll the keys, they give you the opportunity to take some of the things the opponent has. You can take cards, or you can take resource tokens from their supply. And tied to this is my other mechanism that I think is really clever, still tied to combat, is that and let's see if I can find an image of the player mat as I talk about this, because it will make a little bit more sense if I can show you the player mat. I'll scroll through some photos while I'm doing this. On the player mat are different, you can kind of see it here. Let's see if I can zoom in and get a better image. Not really. Okay, so you can see these little orange icons above the resources are keys. So this is 3 keys. This is 1 key, 1 key, 2 keys. And these are resource tokens placed next to those keys. They generally end up sliding to the left, is my understanding. And so this resource is heavily protected. So if someone comes and tries to raid resources from me and they roll those orange dice, they need to roll 3 keys to be able to get this token. Whereas they only need 1 key to claim this token, or 1 key to claim this token. There are also cards in the game. You can see these cards in the supply over here. This card has 3 keys on it. This card has 2 keys. This card has 1 key. So if this opponent has these cards, I can use the keys that I roll to steal those cards. But there's a big risk. So that's a big thing to do in the game. I'm stealing things that you invested in. But with the orange dice, similar to the red dice, it's very easy to damage myself with these dice as well. And again, I think it's really clever that with these dice, I'm not just choosing 1 die. I can choose a variety of dice. I can choose to raid with 1 die and maybe hedge my bets and roll 2 blue dice. So I'm dealing a little bit of damage, and I'm trying to get some keys on the orange dice. I think really clever combat mechanism here, tied to the types of dice you're choosing, the ability to focus on raiding instead of dealing damage, and also the fact that only the attacker is rolling dice. It might seem a little bit weird to do that, to say that, because normally combat is having two players are participating in it. But really, as the defender in this game, it feels like you are still participating in combat because you are simply hoping for the attacker to roll some bad dice that end up hurting them instead of hurting you. So yeah, that is my favorite mechanism in ARCs. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this mechanism, or if you can think of any other combat mechanisms that aren't deterministic. So there is a random element where only the attacker really is participating. In other games, I'd love to hear your examples of those in other games as well. And if you have a different favorite mechanism in ARCs, feel free to mention that in the comments below. Thanks.